The EU and the EU have different perspectives and interests on the Ukraine crisis and how they affect their diplomatic and military actions. Here are some of the main points. The EU sees the Ukraine crisis as a threat to its global leadership and credibility, as well as to the security and stability of Europe and NATO. The EU wants to deter Russia from further aggression and expansion, and to support Ukraine's sovereignty, democracy, and integration with the West. The EU has provided Ukraine with military aid, sanctions, intelligence, and diplomatic backing, and has threatened severe consequences if Russia uses nuclear weapons in its campaign. The EU sees the Ukraine crisis as a violation of its legal obligations and moral principles, as well as a danger to its allies and interests in Europe. The EU wants to uphold the territorial integrity and self-determination of Ukraine, and to prevent Russia from changing borders by force. The EU has also provided Ukraine with military aid, sanctions, and diplomatic support, and has promised to deploy British forces to Eastern European NATO members if Russia invades Ukraine. The EU and the EU have some common interests and goals in the Ukraine crisis, such as defending European security, supporting Ukrainian democracy, and opposing Russian aggression. However, they also have some divergent interests and views, such as the role of NATO, the level of involvement and risk, and the potential outcomes and solutions. The EU is more willing to confront Russia militarily and politically, and to consider Ukraine as a potential NATO member in the future. The EU sees NATO as a vital instrument of collective defense and deterrence against Russia, and as a way to reassure its allies in Europe. The EU is more cautious about escalating the conflict with Russia, and more reluctant to offer Ukraine a clear path to NATO membership. The EU sees NATO as a defensive alliance that should not provoke Russia unnecessarily, and as a club that should not admit countries with unresolved territorial disputes. The EU and the EU have different levels of involvement and risk in the Ukraine crisis. The EU is more distant geographically from Ukraine and Russia, but more exposed politically and economically to the consequences of the conflict. The EU has more leverage over Russia through its global influence and sanctions power, but also more vulnerabilities through its dependence on oil markets and cyber networks. The EU is closer geographically to Ukraine and Russia, but less affected politically and economically by the outcome of the war. The EU has less leverage over Russia through its bilateral relations and trade ties, but also less exposure to Russian retaliation through its energy security and cyber resilience. The EU and the EU have different visions of how to resolve the Ukraine crisis peacefully. The EU favors a more assertive approach that would pressure Russia to withdraw its troops from Ukraine and respect its sovereignty, while offering incentives for cooperation on other issues of mutual interest. The EU prefers a more pragmatic approach that would acknowledge Russia's interests and concerns in Ukraine, while seeking guarantees for its territorial integrity and neutrality, as well as for European security. These differences between the EU and the EU on the Ukraine crisis reflect their historical experiences, strategic cultures, geopolitical positions, domestic politics, and global roles. They also pose challenges for their coordination and cooperation in dealing with this complex and dangerous situation. The EU and EU have a strong and enduring strategic partnership with Ukraine, based on shared values and a commitment to a Europe that is whole, free, democratic, and at peace. The two allies have been working together to support Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity in the face of Russia's ongoing aggression, which has claimed more than 14,000 lives and displaced millions of people. The EU and EU have also been providing Ukraine with political, economic, and security assistance to help it implement reforms, strengthen its institutions, diversify its energy sources, combat corruption, and improve its resilience and readiness. However, the EU and EU also face challenges and opportunities for cooperation and dialogue on the Ukraine crisis and how they can contribute to regional stability and security. Some of these challenges include balancing deterrence and diplomacy. The EU have been leading the international efforts to impose sanctions on Russia for its violations of international law and human rights in Ukraine, as well as providing military aid and training to the Ukrainian armed forces. However, they also recognize the need for dialogue with Russia to de-escalate tensions and find a peaceful solution to the conflict, based on the full implementation of the Minsk agreements. The EU have been supporting the diplomatic efforts of the Normandy format, which brings together Ukraine, Russia, Germany, and France, as well as the OSCE-led Trilateral Contact Group, which facilitates negotiations between Kiev and Moscow. The EU have also been engaging with other regional actors, such as Turkey, Poland, and the Baltic states, to coordinate their positions and actions on Ukraine. Addressing humanitarian needs, the EU have been providing humanitarian assistance to the vulnerable populations affected by the war in eastern Ukraine and the occupation of Crimea, especially those living near the line of contact or in the non-government controlled areas. The EU is the largest single-country donor of humanitarian assistance to Ukraine, having provided nearly $653 million since 2014, including nearly $302 million this year. The EU has also contributed over $100 million in humanitarian aid since 2014, as well as supporting demining activities and psychological support for trauma victims. The EU have been calling on Russia to respect international humanitarian law and allow full and unhindered access for humanitarian workers and organizations to deliver aid to those in need. Promoting reform progress, the EU have been encouraging Ukraine to continue its ambitious reform agenda, which is essential for its democratic development, economic growth, European integration, and resilience against external threats. The two allies have been providing technical assistance, financial support, and policy advice to help Ukraine advance its reforms in various sectors, such as justice, anti-corruption, decentralization, healthcare, education, energy efficiency, banking, agriculture, digitalization, and defense. The EU have also been monitoring the implementation of these reforms and holding Ukraine accountable for its commitments under the association agreement with the EU and the IMF program. Some of the opportunities for cooperation and dialogue include enhancing security cooperation. The EU have been strengthening their security cooperation with Ukraine through joint exercises, training programs, equipment transfers.